Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sprechen Disc Golf, the Pro Tour focused podcast. This is episode 0. I'm going to call it episode 0 because we're going to be talking about the 2022 season recap. So it's not actually focusing on a 2023 upcoming event, which is going to be the general format of the show. But I still wanted to talk about it a little bit for those who might not have been fully filled in. So episode 0, kind of a special episode to start out. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. So I'm going to be talking about the 2022 season. We're going to go through some of the award winners from the year, the Pro Tour winners, major winners, some season headlines, and then some expectations versus performance for the top 30 players. So jumping right in, the players of the year in their respective divisions were Kristin Tattar and Ricky Wysocki. No real surprises there. At the end of the year, we saw some people had a chance to knock Ricky off his kind of pedestal there. Simon, if Simon could have gotten a USDGC win, I think he would have gotten Player of the Year. Paul has a strong case if he gets a USDGC win. I mean, 2 majors and 1 Pro Tour versus 4 Pro Tours. It's, who knows? And even Calvin going into the end there, 2 Pro Tours and a major. If he could have gone like Maple Hill or something, could have snuck up there. But those were the people really competing for it. But no one did, obviously. The rookies of the year were Emily Beach and Isaac Robinson. Emily Beach, obviously, big lefty thrower. She is fantastic. And then Isaac Robinson, putting extraordinaire. I mean, if the basket's within 100 feet, he's going to be dangerous. So really, really excited to continue to see him grow and develop. And I hope to see him in a lot of events this upcoming year on the podium. And hopefully, maybe we see him get that major. You never know. The most improved players were Valerie Mandujano and Gannon Burr. Valerie Mandujano really burst on, 2 wins this year. We know she's a super talented player. I kind of thought she might not have the distance to compete, but she proved me wrong, and she got to work throwing really, really just controlled drives, controlled upshots, nice putting. Took down 2 Pro Tours this year, and then, of course, Mr. Gannon Burr. He kind of improved in a different sense because he's still really growing into his game. If you don't know, he's only 17 and just graduated high school. So Gannon Burr, what an outstanding year he had. And we'll talk a little bit more in the season preview about what we expect from him this year. But getting into our major winners for this year, one of the cool things about this year was we had 4 majors, MPO and FPO. That makes 8 winners. And we had 7 different people win. We only had 1 repeat winner the entire year, which was kind of fun. So on the MPO side, we had Chris Dickerson taking down Champions Cup. We had Paul Macbeth taking down Worlds, of course. Eagle McMahon winning the European Open in a ridiculous way. And then Gannon Burr getting his kind of maiden win at USDGC. On the FPO side, we saw Paige Pierce take down Champions Cup and the European Open. Haley King took down USWDGC, and then Kristin Tattar took down Worlds. If you want to throw Katrina Allen in there for winning Throw Pink, a lot of people consider that a major. It seems to be extremely important to the FPO field, and you can see by the purse size and their reactions to winning that it really means a lot to them. So USWDGC and Throw Pink are kind of competing, but both fantastic events. So those were our winners for majors. The only repeat was Paige Pierce winning Champions Cup and European Open. She won Champions Cup on the 18th after Kristin really struggled. We have that whole situation with Kristin and her daughter and Elaine King. That was kind of weird. So led to her getting another win. The Pro Tour winners, so I'm not going to include Silver Series. I know a lot of people say Silver Series, they don't count, they're boring, whatever. And the reason I'm not including them here is because not all of them have super strong fields. So there are some of them with really fantastic field sizes, like the Open at Belton last year. Everyone was at that. I think Chris Dickerson took that down on the MPO side, but everyone was there. That probably is about a Pro Tour level win. But then there are other ones like the Open at Tallahassee, which had very few players. And so it's just tough to kind of decide which ones to include. And so, yeah, we are going to just talk about the Pro Tour winners, Silver Series excluded, of course. So on MPO, we had Drew Gibson winning 1, Paul McBeth winning 1, Ricky winning 4, Calvin Heimberg winning 2, Isaac Robinson winning 1, Simon Lizotte winning 4, and Bradley Williams winning 1. And then down on the FPO side, we had Katrina Allen, Kristen Tatar, Valerie Mandahano, Paige Pierce, Missy Gannon, Natalie Ryan, all taking down wins this year. On that list, we had Isaac, Valerie Mandahano, and Natalie Ryan all taking down their first Pro Tour event. So we had 3 maiden wins, which is kind of cool. And I wouldn't be shocked if we had a few more this season. But that's for another episode. So if we look at some of the kind of headlines from the season, I kind of looked back, thought if you had to break the season down into a bunch of just like short headlines, what would you kind of talk about? So I'm going to go MPO, then FPO. Starting out, we had Simon Lizotte wins 4 events. I mean, who saw that coming? The dad power really came in handy there. And when he needed it the most, he played his heart out. It was just fantastic disc golf. I went to Statmando the other day and looked at the average rating of players' wins, and he was right up there, like high 1050s. No fluke there, just some really great disc golf. If you don't know, he took down Portland, OTB back-to-back. He was in it at the Preserve, could have gotten 3 in a row, but not quite. So Portland OTB, Des Moines Challenge, and then he took down his home course at the MVP Open, beating Corey Ellis from the chase card, Simon was on the chase card, beating Corey Ellis, who was on lead card. An insane ending to that one, an insane ending to the playoff against Robert Burridge, an insane ending to Portland. OTB was a little calmer. I think he beat Calvin by 2 strokes there. So a little bit more relaxed, but overall, I mean, what a fantastic player, and so cool to see him back in his winning ways. So, congrats to Simon. Can't wait to see what you do with MVP this year. Next up, we got Chris Dickerson winning 0 Pro Tours, and this one flew under the radar a little bit. You know, people say, oh, he won a major, he doesn't tour fully. Those are both true, but I think we've come to expect Chris Dickerson at the level he plays. I expect him to get some Pro Tour wins, and especially be in contention a little bit more than he was. We saw him in contention at GMC, where he really threw it away on hole 18, and that was a bummer, because he's such a talented player. To see him make that mistake, we've seen him make that mistake before. If you don't know, GMC, I think it was 2 years ago, Chris Dickerson flipped one over on 18, never got back in bounds, did it again, 1 OB left. I mean, just took a massive number on 18 and really took himself out of the tournament. So kind of a bummer. He's kind of done that twice on hole 18 at GMC. Worlds is there this year, so I don't know if he's going to have a little bit of flashbacks to kind of losing it on that hole, and hopefully he can pull it together and put in a competitive Worlds bid. Isaac Robinson bursts onto the scene. That's our next headline. And man, did he ever, getting 5th at Waco, being on lead card final round at Portland, 6th at USDGC, capturing the win at Idlewild. I mean, this guy was just everywhere out of nowhere. If you don't know, Isaac Robinson just graduated college. His brother Ezra also tours somewhat, at least. Another great player for Prodigy. And Isaac is an assassin if the basket is within 100 feet. I mean, that guy, he can putt. His upshots are fantastic. His circle 2 putting is fantastic. He has the smoothest little step putt. He doesn't really throw forehands, just kind of backhand turnovers, and it is impressive and fun to watch. So look out for him to be more of a threat this year. A couple podiums last year. Look for a couple more this year. Really hope to see it. So Gannon Burr. I probably don't need to add anything to that headline. I mean, this kid was everywhere this year. Unfortunate he didn't get a Pro Tour win, but he did capture that major with USDGC, and he is a fantastic player. So smooth, can throw so far so effortlessly, can putt effortlessly. He's inspired me to try and get better, because he's just makes everything look so easy. So look for him to stay on top. He was definitely playing like the #1 player in the world last year at different times, and I'm glad it culminated in a win for him at the end there. So we will see if he can get his first Pro Tour win. He had a chance last year. He kind of threw it away on 18 by barely going OB long. Drew Gibson ties it up. He did have 3 strokes going into the final 5 holes, I think. and Drew really turned it on and was able to take that down in the playoffs. So let's see if he can keep his nerve a little bit more this year in the Pro Tours and get that win. And the last one is Paul Wynn's number 6. This needs no explanation. After missing the cut at Dynamic Discs Open, which is also out in Emporia, a little bit of course tweaking going on. So not exactly the same, but I'm sure he was thinking about it and misses the cut, comes back, win Worlds there in playoffs. He's the best. There's nothing else to it. He's just the best player, and he did GOAT things there. So super exciting from the FPO side. From the MPO side. On the FPO side, Christian Tatar dominates 100% podium percentage at Pro Tour events. I mean, what a season. It's kind of interesting. I was looking at Statmando the other day because I heard Seppo Paju talk about how, Christian Tatar, she never beats those girls from Finland. And that is actually true. Over in Europe, she has a very bad record against Evelina and Henna is who Seppo was talking about. But she came over here and turned it into a different gear. I mean, just who saw that coming? You know, there were Henna, Evelina, Kristen all coming over, and Kristen was the one that really put it into 10th gear. So look for her to stay dominant this year. I would expect multiple major wins this year. She had a little bit of an injury last year. Her and Silver both got COVID. They had to stay home. You know, they have a young daughter, so there was a lot of things kind of hampering her success, and she moved those right aside and kept going and persevered, which was amazing to see. Another thing was Paige Pierce late in the year. I have the headline, Paige Pierce loses edge, and that is because later in the year, she was talking about how after Kristen had kind of beaten her and she felt like she couldn't even reach that level, she kind of lost a little bit of her competitive edge, and I think she said she didn't mind if it never came back, or she didn't wish to find it again. If you look at her year on paper, it was a good year. She won 2 majors. She had Pro Tour wins. So overall, a good year, but she also was out of events a lot more than we've seen. I think she was quite a few strokes off at USWDGC. She had some weird moments, some really weird moments. She wasn't really in it at Worlds. She did some really, really strange things where it's that's not the old Paige Pierce. So while she had a good year when Kristen was actually at events, Paige was not quite as successful. I don't know how much the mental game is there, but Paige just was not as sharp as she used to be. She's still one of the best FPO players of all time. She could still kick my butt 100 times out of 100 times. Just kind of interesting how she kind of just said, well, Kristen's beaten me. What are you going to do? Val Mandujano could be a force in the future. That is, this year she really started, the FPO field has been really developing. We've seen players like Ella Hansen, Haley King, Paige Pierce start really throwing the disc really far. And Val Mandujano came in spite of that said, what if I won 2 Pro Tours, throwing my placement shots, really making the game simple. And that was really, really kind of fun to see because we expect the FPO field to get farther distance and bigger and better and whatever. And Val Mandujano came in and said, well, that might not be the case forever. So if she can, she's going to Worlds this year, hopefully. And at a course like Brewster Ridge, hopefully she can continue those placement shots and she might have a chance at it. You never know. But that is a place for some good touch. She is dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury right now. We'll get into that in a future episode, but hopefully she gets back to healthy. And yeah, she had a great year. And then from the FPO field especially, I noticed a lot of players are kind of on the rise. So when you're looking through the rankings and just kind of through who's at events, you really notice a lot of players that you're like, oh yeah, they could win it. We got players like Val Mandujano, Emily Beach, Macy Vela Diaz, Maria Oliva, Kat Murch, all of these players, if they came out and won an event next year, it would not surprise me. And you still have those players like Sarah Hokum, Paige Pierce, Katrina Allen, Kristen Tarr. Evelina, Henna, if they win an event, that doesn't surprise you. So right now I think we're getting to see a really deep FPO field and a lot of players that can win it, like a lot of players, and that is really, really exciting. I think we're starting to get farther away from the days of, 15 stroke wins on FPO, and we're starting to get to that, kind of grouping it together a little more, which is super exciting. We have Paige Shue coming back touring more. Like, I would love to see her up into the top again. So really exciting time to be on FPO. So that's kind of the season in review and headlines. And I am now going to walk through, I made a tier list, and it's players' expectations going into last season versus how they performed. And I'm going to walk you through, these are the top 30 players from UDisc rankings. So you won't see guys like Brody on here, unfortunately, but I think it'll give you a good idea into the season. I'm going to start from the bottom tier and go up. So if you're an audio listener right now, it just says D, C, B, A, and then S tier at the top. And again, this is expectations versus performance. So on the bottom tier, we have, I'm just going to go through them one by one, explain a little bit. We have Adam Hammes. 2021, Adam Hammes won 2 events. He won MVP and Masters Cup. And I expected him to come in and kind of dominate this year. He has the big distance, he has the forehand, he has the backhand, he has the putting, the deep putting, he has it all. And he just could not put it together this year. We were consistently seeing him outside of the top 10, dropped really far in the UDisc rankings. Huge disappointment of the year for Adam Hammes. So hopefully he can rebound, but that kind of year can be really devastating for your confidence and for your kind of game going forward. Next up is Eagle. This one's self-explanatory. I do not think Eagle would have been happy if you told him that he'd be out for almost the entire year with an elbow injury. When we saw him, he played amazing at Europe, but overall the year was a disappointment for him, not because of anything he could control, but just because injury. James Conrad came off his Worlds win. We kind of thought, guys, now with MVP, is this the new James Conrad? Not really. Didn't really see him in contention this year. Fell down well outside the top 10 in UDisc rankings. Just not really, kind of a second thought this year. Very big bummer, especially coming off that huge Worlds win. Nico De Castro, not really inside. I think he had 1 top 10 finish. No top 5s, no podiums before he got suspended, gets suspended, leaves. Bad year for Nico. Changed sponsors again. Maybe he'll come back stronger, I hope. We'll see. And then last is Lauri Leitinen. If you don't know, he's a European player coming over. Had some high expectations. He was killing it on the European Pro Tour for a bit. I was excited to see him, and he kind of fell off into the backdrop. He was not fantastic this year. I would have really liked to see a little bit more out of him. So hopefully he tours again in the U.S. this year, and we can see a little bit more. C tier, we got Kale LaVisca. Didn't play a whole lot of events. Not really in it. He's clearly focusing on a lot of other things. He has his own disc line now with Prodigy Airborne Discs. He obviously has the Preserve going on, running that course and the tournament there. So playing seems like not at the forefront of his mind right now, or foreground of his mind, but not a great year from Kale if you're looking at purely playing. I mean, he did great things in business and for the community, but playing-wise, not his best year. Not a lot to be said there. Chris Dickerson. Now, this one's going to surprise a lot of people, him being in the C tier. But I put him there because Chris Dickerson has established himself in I would say in the top 6 of players. And he won Champions Cup, and then he kind of fell off for a bit. Didn't play a lot of events, didn't play that well when he was playing for a while. Was in it at GMC, didn't win a Pro Tour. He got that early win, and then he kind of went away. So kind of a bummer for Chris Dickerson. I do hope he is doing a fuller tour this year. He's going to Europe, which is very exciting. He's not going to Vegas. We'll talk about that in the Vegas show. Stop trying to get me to talk about Vegas. But hopefully we can see a little bit more from him this year. And I know it wasn't a bad year, but I think by his own expectations, I think he would have liked to do better. Again, he was with a new sponsor. We'll give him some time. Drew Gibson. Drew Gibson's next on the list. Won Vegas, went completely MIA after that. Really didn't see him much. He skipped the Texas swing, came back, not great. It's just I don't think he'd be happy with how he finished. He does have his company Finish Line Discs now. He's making stuff, doing business. Maybe his entire focus isn't on the Pro Tour. There's my phone going off. Very nice. So we will see if Drew Gibson can have a little bit of a better year. He did get that win, exciting, but you got to kind of continue that. Barsby, we saw him at Texas State's, saw him a little bit at GMC. Not a lot else. He missed the top 20 too many times. Not fantastic from Greg Barsby. Kevin Jones. When is Kevin Jones going to have that breakout year? I feel like we've been saying forever, oh, this is KJ's year. He's got that big flashy jump putt. He's got distance. He's got the hyzer flip, the roller, the grenade, the thumb. I mean, he has it. He has it all. Just never really putting it together. This year, he did well at Vegas. He didn't really impress me outside of a couple events. It was kind of a bummer year for Mr. KJ USA. Didn't super come close to a win. Jonesboro was his closest, but he really threw that. He came close to Jonesboro, but he was right in it with Heimberg and Macbeth. And if he got into a playoff with them, I would not take Kevin in that because Calvin's a killer in playoffs. Macbeth is a killer. Kind of a bummer year. I would expect to see him in the top 5 a little bit more. Next up is Linus Carlson. He was the highest rated European player who was coming over for the full-time tour. I think he was 1032 at the time. Latitude 64 sponsored player, really hyped up. Didn't really see him a ton until MVP. He had a chance for the win on 18 through a horrendous tee shot. But I have faith that he's one of the guys that will fully bounce back. Like, I think he is too talented. He's acclimating to life on the tour in the U.S. I think this year, if he is touring full-time, I really hope we see the best of Linus because he is super talented. Next up, we got Mr. Nate Sexton. Similar to Cale, didn't tour a lot. That's really all that can be said there. I don't know if, he wasn't expecting to tour a lot, but I would love to see him more because Sexton could absolutely still pull out a win on a technical course or anywhere. He won Vegas a few years ago. He could really pull out a win anywhere. In the B tier, these are guys who were at or maybe slightly exceeded expectations. They had good years, but weren't amazing compared. Alden Harris, we saw him put in a really good effort at Jonesboro. He kind of put his name on the map as some of that nice core young prodigy team. Good year. Not amazing, not bad, good year. Anthony Barella. We saw him pop up a little bit at Worlds through some amazing shots. Good year, not great year. New sponsor this year. We'll see how that goes. Bradley Williams won an event. I don't think he expected to do that. It was on the same day he had won his first Pro Tour, or he won the first Pro Tour, I think it was, at Maple Hill. I think it was like 10 years to the day. I don't remember the exact amount of years, but overall, good year for Bradley. Other than the win, didn't see him. Garrett Gerthy. I think Garrett Gerthy had a solid year. I think he has high expectations for himself because he has been kind of a upper tier player at times. We saw him in contention at Portland, kind of throwing it away versus Simon. He did get that Silver Series win, so if I was Garrett Gerthy, I'd be happy with my year. Kyle Klein. I could probably put Kyle Klein in A tier. He's kind of on the edge. Started out rough, and then in the middle of the season, he just went on a top 10 tear. If you look at it, 5th, 6th, 7th, 5th, 4th, like really, really good stretch middle of the season. I was super happy to see him bounce back. He was also acclimating to kind of a new tour lifestyle a little bit. Came off a win last year at Idlewild, or 2 years ago now, at Idlewild. Hopefully he can get back on the winner's podium this year, or on the winner's spot this year. Fantastic player with Discmania. So rough start, picked it up a little bit, solid year from Kyle. Matthew Oram, now he had a really good year in terms of placed finishes, but he just cannot get that win. And I think that is why I have him B tier, because I think if you ask him, he would say, I'm really disappointed I didn't get a win this year. So I think he had a good year, but he put himself in a position where he could win a lot of times, and he never was able to pull it out. So, Matteo, you obviously have the talent we're expecting you to win some events. Nicholas Antila, really great player from Finland, popped up at USDGC, probably should have won it, missed a couple putts, made a couple mistakes, but overall a fantastic young player. He's only 20 or 21. He's my age, and so we'll just see how he continues to progress. And last on that list is kind of a controversial one. It's Paul Macbeth. I know Paul Macbeth ended up being second in Pro Tour points. He rebounded, he won Worlds. But I think he put himself out of events too often, and I think he would be upset with that. Positions where, like at Champions Cup, he's shooting a course record the last round, and he had no chance to win it. Like, he pushed up back into the top 10, but he had no chance to win it. Missing the cut at DDO, he was kind of, after Waco, was not shooting the best. He shot that really, really rough round at Texas State's, like second or third round on lead card, and just, yeah, I think if you ask him, he would want to win more than one Pro Tour. So I put him B tier. He probably could have been A tier, but Macbeth has set high expectations, and last year I don't think was his best year. I don't think he's going to look back on that one and be happy with it. So A tier, we have Mr. Aaron Gossage, the man who tried to take Macbeth's 6 Worlds away from him. He really showed out this year. He showed us that you can make a course really simple because he has a massive forehand and a massive backhand, and he threw hyzers all around Emporia and said, what if I pushed Paul Macbeth to a playoff? And that he did. He had some impressive highlights from the Pro Tour Championship as well. Will we see in a OTB? He plays well. He always plays well at OTB. So 2 years ago, I guess now, it's kind of weird saying that, but 2 years ago, he into the Pro Tour Championship as just the last person in because Simon pulled out, and this year he very handily got in with some really good finishes. So at his kind of rate increasing, we could see him fighting for a win here soon on more than one occasion. Next up in the A tier is Mr. Calvin Heimberg. He came off a very strange year 2 years ago. So he won a Silver Series. He tied the win with Ricky at Ledgestone. He won the Match Play Championship, but he never got that full Pro Tour win, and he was clearly disappointed by that. This year, he comes out and does Calvin fashion, put himself in contention a lot. He wins Jonesboro for the second time, and then he won D-Glow for the first time. Two were mainstays, some great events. He also did something. There's kind of this idea that Calvin is not a good finisher at Worlds. And if you looked at this year, he was one of 2 players that finished in the top 10 at every single major. Sorry, I said Worlds, I meant majors. Calvin's not good at majors. But he finished in the top 10 at every one. He was on lead card at Worlds, USDGC, and Champions Cup lead card, multiple rounds. And so I think it's tough to say that at this point. At this trajectory, he's going to get his first major soon. That's for a future episode. Come on, Zach, back to focus. 2 wins, good year from Calvin. I think he can be happy with it. Corey Ellis, we hadn't seen a ton from him 2 years ago. You'd heard his name, and he's kind of famous for his putting. I believe he led the Pro Tour in putting 2 years ago. And he arguably could have had 2 wins this year. D-Glow pushed Calvin to a playoff, threw it OB on hole 1. MVP had what he would call, I'm sure, a routine zone forehand upshot and ripped it over, threw it OB, couldn't make the par putt. Simon wins from Chase. He should have won MVP, didn't. This year, I'm really expecting him to win an event. But again, that's for a later episode. But yeah, last year, Corey Ellis, what a great player. Standstill king, super far thrower, great year. Joel Freeman wasn't necessarily in contention at a ton of events, but he was always just right in the top 10. Great year from him. He won a Silver Series, Butler County Open, I believe, and shot what some pros are calling one of the best rounds of all time, setting a course record. I know a lot of people don't love his personality off the course. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. But on the course, he is a great, very well-rounded player. He throws flexes, throws hyzers well, throws forehands, putts pretty solidly. Just really solid, well-rounded player. So Joel Freeman, good year. A tier, Ricky Wysocki. Rick, he won 4 Pro Tours. I think if you asked him before the season, Rick, what if you won 4 Pro Tours? He'd be like, yeah, that's what I expect for myself. He's a top-tier competitor, super competitive guy. And the reason I have him A tier instead of S tier is because he did not win a major. And I think he probably really wants to win a major. I think he knows that to really cement himself as one of the best of all time, he needs to pick it up at majors, especially as of lately, with the field becoming more competitive. And so he had a fantastic year, but he didn't cap it off with the big win. But again, player of the year, great, Pro Tour points winner, great season, but not an S tier season for Rick. Like, Rick has done this before. He wants that major. I think he needs to get a major. Yeah. And the last one in the A tier, I have Vaino Makala. And the reason he's in the A tier, he wasn't on the podium a ton like some of the other guys. He wasn't constantly in for, wins. But he was the highest rated he was had the best results of any of the European players to come over, and he was not the highest rated by any means. So I think people were expecting guys like Albert Tam, Lori Leitonen, Linus Carlson, Nicholas Antila to all be better, and then Vaino came over and had a really solid season. Highest finishing European player at Worlds, finished top 10 at European Open, got his first Pro Tour podium at DDO, and some really solid finish at Maple Hill. He's a great player, super smooth. He putts at like 100 miles an hour. It's very fun to watch. If you get a chance, go check out some of his rounds on the European Pro Tour where he's a killer. And I'm really excited. He didn't do like a full tour this year. I'm really excited. I hope he does more events this year because I think with the right course, he could really compete. All right, last guy on the A tier is Mr. Chris Clemens. He snuck up this year. He's a lefty. He has a disadvantage. Courses are built for righties generally. Chris Clemens has a massive forehand. He's got a okay distance backhand. He's got an okay putt, but he found his way on the lead card at Worlds this year. Had some really, really awesome finishes, and just overall a really solid player that I think flew kind of under the radar this year. I think if you asked me where Chris Clemens would have ended up in the standings and Pro Tour points this year, I would have probably said 20th, 25th, and he was really kind of solidly right at the top 10 this year, which was really, really fun to see. Love Chris Clemens, seems like a cool guy, so great season, Chris. All right, now we have the S tier. These guys going into the season, they, depending on what expectations might have been, they way outperformed them. They did what no one expected, and they killed it, and I'm excited to see them going forward. So, number one, we've already talked about all these guys, but number one, we got Gannon Buhr. Obviously, the kind of prodigy of disc golf, who's no longer with Prodigy. That's another video in itself. But he is just a 17-year-old who can throw mega far, won USDGC, was in contention a bunch. I could go on and on about how great of a player he is, massive forehand. But his game speaks for itself, and he really showed that this year. So, Gannon Buhr, great job. Isaac Robinson, no one knew this guy before this year, really. Most people didn't unless you were deep in the disc golf scene. And like I said, 5th at Waco, final round lead card on Portland, the win at Idlewild, great finish at USDGC. This guy's a baller. Can't wait to see him. And just an S tier year from him. I mean, he graduated college. I don't think he was expecting to come and be as dominant as he was, and killer this year. Last but not least, Mr. Simon Lizotte. If you told me before the season that Simon had 4 wins, if you told me before the season Simon had 1 win, I would say probably not. If you said 2 wins, I would say definitely not. 3 wins, I would say absolutely not. If you said 4 wins, I would say impossible. And Simon took all those expectations and absolutely subverted them. What a fantastic, cool year. Probably the most liked player on tour. And I think everyone was so, so excited to see just how good of a year that was. I mean, every win, I was just pumped for him. I'm a big Calvin fan, and when he beat Calvin at OTB, I was clapping with everyone else. It was an electric moment, and he just kept doing it. And I cannot wait to see what he does with MVP. So, shout out to those guys in the D tier. Come on, let's go this year. This is your year. You gotta step it up. So. That is, I think, going to wrap it up for the episode. Keep an eye out for my Vegas episode, and in that episode, we will also be covering my predictions for the 2023 season, which I'm really, really excited for. Check out our website, sprechensports.com. You can join an event and talk with real fans in real time about that event live. So it's kind of like this live sports chat room, sprechensports.com. And then check out our Twitter and our Instagram for updates on the podcast or to follow along live with us on events. I'll be tweeting out things that are happening in the events, kind of getting some discussion started. But that is really what the Sprechen platform is for. So all the links will be down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. This is my first video. If there's anything you think I could do better, let me know. I am looking to kind of improve my set here. I don't have a ton of flexibility with that, but looking to improve. So thank you for watching. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Audio listeners, go check it out on YouTube. I will have a graphic of that chart I was talking about and some other stuff popping up. So a little bit of a different experience on YouTube, but I look forward to seeing you guys in future episodes, and have a good one.